The views and opinions expressed on this show belong solely to the hosts and their guests and do not reflect the views of any on-site institutions unless explicitly stated.
What's up, everybody? My name is Steve Vanderwall.
And I'm Justin Klosser,
and we're your hosts of Cannabis Cum Laude, a podcast devoted entirely to cannabis. We're going to talk cultivation, business, medicine, politics, culture, advocacy, and everything in between.
The cannabis industry is complicated. It's robust. It has a lot of moving parts, and it's our job to help you understand it just a little bit better. So tune in every week for a brand new episode. And if you have a question that you'd like answered on the show, send it on over to questions@cannabiscumlaude.com. Thanks. Enjoy the show.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to part 2 of this week's episode of Cannabis Cum Laude. You got Steve and Justin here, and our buddy Jordan River from the Growcast podcast. Part 1, we really dove into the origin of Growcast, some of the cast of characters, who are some of the more residency guests on the show. Really awesome show. Definitely check it out. This part of the podcast, we're going to take a dive into cultivation. We got giggling last episode about how our conversations always end up talking about grow with our fellow grow buddies. So it only makes sense for us to have a little bit of cultivation conversation. So your bio says that you grew in the medical market from 2010 to 2015. Tell us about that.
Yeah, man, that was the time that I spent up in Humboldt. I'm now realizing, by the way, my studio is, due to the graphics, so a little cut off, but I can move my camera here. Probably should have had it like over here. Probably should be like chilling back here, right? Does that make more sense?
Looks great.
Maybe
Yeah,
not.
you look beautiful.
All right, we'll go there. What? There we go. Nice. I thought I was doing that.
Definitely got a nice
Slow
look
down.
at the Growcast symbol now. It was a little bit tucked up in the corner before.
There we go. Yeah. Yeah, man. That was when I had my large scale grow, not large scale. I had a 16 lighter up in Humboldt County. And again, from 2010 to 2015. And I got in with a group from Bayside Garden Supply. It's just a really great garden supply store. And I met some people because my cousin had served with some people. Long story short, I was using their feed schedule, at the time. This was before I discovered regenerative organic or anything like that. And I was just doing my 16 lighter. Back then, if you grew quality, clean flower, you walk into a dispensary, you hand it over, they'd look at it. Sometimes they'd test it, and they'd pay you. They'd offer you a price, or they'd say, no, we're not interested. And those were really the golden days, right? Pre-recreational legalization. That California market was just awesome. And again, prices started to dive later in my time there. But I bet if I even told people right now what those low prices, it's probably higher than it was now, is what I'm saying. Like, it's so hard for farmers, man.
Yeah,
it's so hard for farmers. But I had success for 5 years. And then I shut down and ended up moving back home. And yeah, it was really maybe the best 5 years of my life. It's hard to say because I've really been enjoying how things are going now. But I look back on that time so fondly, is my point.
Well, absolutely. If you spend most of your day hanging around plants and breathing in like the freshest of oxygen with a nice little tinge of
CO2,
good smell, and I don't know, I just
Man.
feel like you can't really get past that. And like having your hands in soil or whatever, there's something about the microbiology that elevates your mood, right?
Yeah.
And it makes it easy to not let the little things get after you, at least in my opinion.
It's my favorite part of the day. I go into the garden first thing in the morning, right after lights on, have my coffee, do a walkthrough, make sure everything, just spend a couple hours. Usually my work's done in like 10 minutes, it's everything's on timers and stuff, but I just like being in there, checking around, it's just
Looking under leaves.
It's the best part of the day,
100%, man.
So
Yeah.
I wanted to, we kind of left something out there that I do want to get into a little bit. And that you mentioned briefly at the end of the last episode was the Growcast, correct me, I'm trying to say Growcast Genetics, but I don't feel like that's proper. Can you?
Growcast Seed Co. Yeah.
Growcast Seed Co. Yep. So what's up with that? Are you guys breeding? Are you? Do you have other people breeding for you? Are you bringing in external beans? What's going on?
So to be perfectly clear, Rhizo Rich is the head breeder at Growcast Seed Co.
Okay.
I am not a breeder. I have never bred.
Okay.
So how Growcast Seed Co. got started was Rhizo Rich has been collecting incredible cuts for a really long time. I mean, 12 plus years we're talking about. And he's even made crosses for quite some time. A lot of people don't know that one of our flagship strains, the Ice Cream Wolfman, named after Wolfman himself, was bred years ago, like, I don't know, 8 years ago, 6 years ago, something like that. But point is, he came to me one day and he's like, I'm thinking about, I just got my hands on a really great male from a close friend of ours. I was about to shout him out. I don't know if he would appreciate it. A gray market guy.
Okay.
And he got the males in the garbage were absolutely beautiful. One of the males he literally pulled out of the garbage. And he said, I'm thinking about crossing to some of these cuts that I've been holding on to for a long time. And I said, our members have been looking for a way to get some affordable fire genetics. A lot of the stuff that Rhizo Rich works with is like I don't want to say the hype, but because he is selective, he doesn't go after hype strains, but he goes after expensive stuff. You know what I mean? Like $200 packs sort of thing.
Right.
In-house genetics, Lovin' in Her Eyes, Relentless Genetics. I don't know how expensive their packs are exactly, but you get the idea. So we're thinking, we're not trying to just like blow up a seed company and, take over the industry or anything like that. All we're really trying to do with Seedco is serve our members and get them really fire genetics for an affordable price. So that's what we do. And for instance, we just did a GMO drop and it's not even going to survive the members. They gobble it up so fast and they get a special member price and all this fun stuff.
Well, that's great, right? If you can have a market just sitting there waiting for to switch it back over to a business end, that's awesome that you're able to do that and have them disappear. And you don't even have to go external for the most part, right?
Ideal.
So that's awesome. And if you're giving it to them at a better price than what they're probably going to find elsewhere, then it's a win-win-win all the way around. Like you can't really lose to that.
That's kind of the whole point. And I don't want to undersell it just because they're affordable. You should see some of these crosses. Go follow Rhizo Rich. I think it's Rhizo_Rich_ICC on Instagram. And you'll see some of these pictures are insane. Our Peach Quake cross is just fucking beautiful. And that's a Bloom Seed Co.'s peach pie crossed with a Mac Stomper.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of crazy ones, but the Peach Quake is absolutely out of this world.
Man, that Mac, I've never seen anything frost up the way the Mac does. That Mac one, that original, that thing is just ridiculous. You look like you're looking at a blizzard looking at one nugget. It's crazy. And so everything that's coming behind that is, I'm sure it's at least got the potential for fire, right? Like got the genetics.
Man, I literally haven't seen one disappointing one. And again, I don't want to feel it. I sound biased because it's Growcast Seed Co. But just go look at the pictures. And I'll also shout out a member who's an organic living soil grower. Shout out to Cannaspam. Cannaspam dropped off a Peach Quake bud at one of the recent events, and it's exactly like you said. What's really great about that cross is that peach pie male really was dominant with its terpene profile. Nice. Everything out of that line is peaches. It's either peaches or peaches and something. So it was very, very dominant, and the Mac Stomper really lent its frost density.
Right.
So you can actually go and see pictures of the bud that we were handed at that event on Rhizo Rich's page, and you'll see the frost density, and then just imagine someone took a handful of peaches and smashed them into your face. Oh. And that's what I experienced.
Sold.
Yeah, right? My mouth is watering over here.
I mean, I love peaches, so maybe I'm biased, but yeah. And the other thing is, just quickly, the Ice Cream Wolfman has a really great apricot pheno. When I grew out the Ice Cream Wolfman F1, first of all, easy to grow, massive yield, color show, serious color show, and apricots for days.
Oh shit.
Absolutely. So I'm a reg guy. Like I personally like reg. So all this stuff sounds right up my alley. But the sad reality is most growers these days, especially new growers anyways, are coming in looking for feminized seeds. Is Rhizo Ridge doing anything with feminization?
We've got some feminized seeds in the line. We've already in the works. We've already got a couple of lines of regulars, so that's definitely a priority.
Yeah.
But we're working on a couple of feminized strains, especially ones like the F-Berry, which Rich has had for, I believe, over 10 years now,
nice.
Only in female cut form.
Right.
And that's a beautiful one, and that's the mother to Ice Cream Wolfman. So you might see an F-Berry feminization, and then you're going to see a lot of our big hits like the Peach Typhoon, which is a slurricane cross, the Peach Quake, and some other ones are probably going to get feminized. We'll probably never do autoflowers unless it's a collab, like someone else works with us.
Yep.
But we're definitely doing feminized. And I would also say, for those cultivators out there, don't sleep on sex testing. Sex testing is a great option. And you can sex test them when they're seedlings, get those results back, and just kill the males in the seedling stage. You save all that space, you save all that time and soil and nutrition.
Absolutely.
Good advice.
It is definitely a great option, especially if you're not looking to breed or something. Correct. Even if you are looking to breed, then you know where your males are. Maybe you're specifically looking for males. This might even be a better option for you, right? Because then you're not running through a bunch of females when really all you're interested in is the male. Same thing, just opposite.
Yeah.
So
It's pretty great.
let's also sorry, I wanted to point out that definitely makes sense to not work with autos. I feel like unless you have some kind of massive facility or team working on this, like they're just such a vastly different technique associated, right? Because it doesn't make sense to try and do them both unless you have space, right? Like serious space.
Yeah.
Or
seems
alternate,
way
I guess.
harder.
Yeah.
We're not super interested in that priority anyways. I really like autos. I think they're fun to grow. I primarily am a photo grower. Rich doesn't even grow autos.
Yep.
So we want to serve our members. So we're going to get into that eventually. It's just out of our sphere. We're going to need to hit up, Firebuds or Thor or, God bless Mandalorian, now Gnome Automatics, you know what I mean? Full duplex, and see if we can do a collab. That would be perfect. But
that was a good
like you
episode.
said-
I just listened to that today, actually, Gnome Automatics.
Yeah, he's just a really cool dude, man. He's a really cool dude. And I feel really blessed to have a direct line to a lot of these breeders. And again, a lot of them are open books. And sometimes it's just like a chat between friends. That's how I feel about full duplex. It's like I'm calling my friend on the phone.
Absolutely. So let's kind of switch gears a little bit and dive into your preferred growing style. So are you... I think I remember you saying that you're primarily indoor grower, right? Do you dabble outdoors at all?
I've never had the opportunity to. I would love to.
Okay.
Yeah.
So indoors, are you trying to bring nature inside, or are you kind of playing with synthetics?
I started for 5 years out in Humboldt County using cutting edge nutrients.
Okay.
I feel that cutting edge as a synthetic nutrient line doesn't get nearly the play that it deserves. It's affordable. It's really well formulated, and it's formulated specifically, I heard, for Humboldt tap water. They had really great tap water. It's another reason it's easy to grow there. So shout out to Cutting Edge Nutrients, and Wolfman knows the guy who created it, and he's such a good guy, raves about him. That's all I knew for the longest time. Between 2015 and when I started my grow back up just a couple of years ago, I didn't grow for the longest time, and I learned about this thing called regenerative agriculture. Mm-hmm. I learned about it from a lot of my guests. Even back in Humboldt, a few of my guests were talking about it, but I never really took it seriously. I got into coffee cultivation and learned about the regenerative side of that, which really got me thinking about cannabis. And then when I returned, and really when I tried Rhizo Rich's living soil weed, honestly, that was one of the things that turned me. He was like how organic is a scam guy, and he switched and never went back. And again, that's where I'm at too. I love living soil. I am dabbling with some new fertilization techniques. There's a company called Beanstalk Agriculture. I've actually got the bags right over there. It's a bag of prills. It's a bag of beads. So instead of synthetic nutrients in a bottle every time, you just apply these synthetic beads once. So I was synthetic, I went full organic, and I never thought about going back until I saw this really easy new method. And now I run like 4 in living soil and 1 in Beanstalk. So hey, I'm consistent with the show. As long as you're growing, I'm happy. I don't think there's one perfect way, best way. I think everyone's different. And I like to mix it up so I give myself headaches every time.
Yeah, absolutely. Always chasing the problem, right? Or the improvement. What actually did that? I'm the same way. I'm that guy who's like, oh, okay, I got a new light. Let's switch up nutrients this time too.
It's fun though. It's fun.
Exactly what I do, man.
I think it's good to get be a well-rounded grower. I mean, start with being outdoors. Soil. Be able to dabble with hydro. I mean, just dabbling with everything. I think is just going to make you a more well-rounded grower.
Well, in our specific position too, the three of us, we kind of need to be able to like have had experience with these different products so that we can compare one to the other, and
Yeah.
what results we saw in our growing methods at least are likely going to be very similar from grow to grow. Just because the light change doesn't mean that your style is changing,
Yeah.
right? So like you can get a generalization of what the differences are from one to the next, you know, as far as switching up nutrients.
And
even though it's
each
not
methodology,
scientific.
you can grow fire on each method. I mean,
Any
and
method.
that's the best part. It's not like, you know, only hydro you can grow gas, only indoor soil can grow gas. You can all grow gas if, you know, leveraging different growers' techniques and talking to people who've done it. I mean,
I would say one thing that holds true when it comes to that department, though, is it's significantly easier to get better yields out of hydroponic synthetic growing. Easier. Not
See,
that it's not
I would agree with
doable
that.
in organic, but
I would agree with that. That's been my whole time. My whole struggle with organics has been chasing that yield of the bottle. You can get there. You definitely can get there if you dial it in. Maybe you can't ever get to those massive DWC buds, but I'll also say there's something about that. I think there's something really about the way that an organic super soil senesces and runs out of nutrients and kind of fades towards the end of its life, where even the best grown DWC, it looks different when it's fertigated so much for so long. It looks greener. It looks, and again, you know, Steve nailed it. Like all of it will grow weed that's delicious and gets you really, really high. We're talking about like degrees of flavor difference, in my opinion. And even that's argued about. You know, me and Coco argue about the synthetic versus organic. He thinks it makes no difference. He's fucking crazy. But you know, to me, I think again, it's about your goals. I don't think there's any way of replacing that organic senescence. And yes, I agree with you. I think that synthetics are overall easier, and that's an opinion thing. That's not an objective thing. I think for me, they're overall easier, and I think it's easier to get those big fat yields. Way easier to get those big fat yields.
yeah. And man, all this, what do you think about all this? I'm going to put you on the spot. What do you think about all this controversy that's been coming up? I would say in maybe the past year, it's really been coming to the forefront around flushing. Like,
Oh my
obviously
God.
being an organic grower, it's not as applicable, but having been a synthetic grower, what's your opinion? What's your opinion on the flush?
Well, first of all, I would like to take my foremost stance again and say I think it's ridiculous that the subject like this tears apart the cannabis industry. I think that's absurd. I don't think it should get to a point where people are arguing with each other, screaming at each other online. I think that you just do what works for you.
Yeah.
Now, that being said, I can take somewhat of a stance and give some information too, some factual information. We know that flushing doesn't work the way that the original bro science said it did. You're not removing stored nutrients from your buds. You can test how much nitrogen and phosphorus and potassium and, you know, all of the micronutrients and secondary
Within the
macronutrients.
leaves,
You can test the levels of those pre-flush, post-flush, post-harvest. We know that it's not sucking those things out. That being said, I am a big believer in flushing, and there are some people who have proposed, smarter than me, who have proposed on my show why flushing may have an effect. I'm going to run some by you right now. First of all, if you stop hammering your soil for the last, I don't know, week or two, or even 5 days right before harvest, you're no longer really stymieing and knocking back any possible microbiology that might be thriving in that medium. Maybe the flavor has something to do with the microbiology returning. Is there anything left over in there in that medium that you're no longer hammering with a bunch of salt fertilizers? Are you using compost teas at the end, or even a product like King Crab or Recharge? You're growing organically and letting those microbes at least have a chance to bounce back right before harvest. Could that be affecting the flavor and the smoothness? Certainly doesn't coffee. Here's another one. This one was huge. And I encourage anyone who's interested in this subject to go back and listen to the most recent David K episode. He talks about flushing and defoliation and all the topics that'll get someone in your DMs threatening to physically harm you. And he really nails it. Here's something he said about flushing. He said the senescence process reduces chlorophyll in your plant, in all of the plant matter. When your plant is turning from green to purple, the chlorophyll is, he used the term degrading or dissipating, and it's being kind of replaced with anthocyanin, the purple pigment. Now, we largely believe in the cannabis industry that chlorophyll is responsible for that green, harsh taste. He said we don't really know if that's true, but if that is true, I yelled at him on the show. I said, you just said it. You just fucking said it. The reason why, in my opinion, Senesced plants taste better is because the chlorophyll has been replaced with that delicious and nutritious anthocyanin.
And if you keep pumping it with nutrients, you're going to keep helping it create chlorophyll.
You're never going to run out of that chlorophyll. You're never going to senesce. You're going to have a big, huge, fat, green bud at the end.
In my personal experience, and what I will always come back to, and I almost feel like you can feel it on your tongue or taste it even. But you know that scenario where you're lighting your bowl and all of a sudden the bud starts to snap, crackle, pop. To me, I've noticed that in my own product when I haven't done a proper flush. I personally think there's some kind of, whether it's not one of the macronutrients or that they're testing for, maybe it's not that's being reduced, but I do feel like there's something to do with some salts or metals or something in there that you are helping to pull out, specifically using synthetics and whatnot. And I almost feel like that snap, crackle, pop bud, you can almost feel like a little bit of a different burn on the tip of your tongue as the smoke's coming in, right? And it like stays there and tingles. That to me, I don't know. That to me is enough anecdotal evidence for myself to continue flushing, and that's what I'm going to continue doing moving forward.
I really couldn't agree more. All of that like scientific and diplomatic answer stuff aside, and again, go listen to David Kay talk about it. He's much more eloquent than I am. All of that aside, I've smoked over-fertigated, unflushed buds too. And you're right. I've had that same experience. That's all I need, personally. Especially if you have it happen more than once. You know, I think that some people discount that, but I'm with you. Like I have always believed that since, and that's what I was taught by a lot of the old heads, right? And I'm not calling Wolfman an old head, but I've taught by Wolfman. You know, he was like teaching me why to flush. Again, I bet a lot of the science wasn't exactly accurate, but they do it for a reason.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, they saw results, right? I mean, anecdotal evidence. It kind of bothers me being associated with the scientific realm, the resistance that they have to these years of anecdotal evidence. And while, yeah, it wasn't done necessarily under a entirely controlled scenario with one specific variable, there's been enough repeated anecdotal evidence with different scenarios and different variables, but the same results showing up. I personally think that's worth investigating, right? At least, at a minimum, giving it some merit. And in a lot of cases, doesn't even come up.
Maybe this makes me a flip-flopper or a fence sitter or whatever, but if not flushing works for you, continue to garden the way you're gardening. Yeah. I in no way am pushing that on people, but I couldn't agree more. Just because we don't have a peer-reviewed research study, which, by the way, people think is going to solve everything in the cannabis world. I'll say it here on your podcast for the first time. Get ready. It's only going to make things worse. Yeah. I've been studying a little something called coffee. It's the most studied food product on the planet. And a lot of doctors don't agree if it's good for your brain or bad for your brain. So welcome to the world of meta studies and research studies on these types of things. It's not going to make anything clearer. It's going to make it more murky.
Great. I think that's actually, since I keep hitting my table, sorry guys. Since you brought up the coffee thing, I just want to give you a minute to quick plug your other podcast that you have, if you want, and do like quick run through on what that is.
I'll try to make it quick here, man. Yeah, I love coffee in general, and I love my other show, the Coffee, Health, and Science podcast. It is a show exploring the health effects of coffee, the science behind coffee. We've had Harvard doctors on. It's really, really crazy. And it's because I hooked up with this guy, Andrew Salisbury, at Purity Coffee. And he wanted me to start a show that was not the Purity Coffee show, but actually investigating all of these studies, all of these compounds, the good, the bad, the ugly. And that's exactly what we do on the show. It's really cool. If you like coffee, if you like natural wellness and medicine and exercise, go check out. Sorry about that. Go check out the Coffee, Health, and Science podcast.
It was really putting an exclamation point on that. Go check it out.
Getting pretty stony in here. I'm smoking the Slurricane, the actual cut that's the mother to our Typhoon. So the Slurricane really gets you, man.
Yeah. Hey, I mean, plus we asked you to take a couple puffs for us while you're over there. So what are you going to do?
We'll be puffing in the parking lot afterwards.
Well, we're getting towards the end of the hour. One thing we like to ask, especially our cultivator guests, is there one trick or one thing about growing that you know now that you wish you knew when you first started?
Yeah, this is a great question. For me, really, I think it was understanding that microbiology, understanding how microbiology affects the expressions in your plant, and in how easy it is to incorporate these microbial products. So people focus so much on the nutrition of the plant, but there's this whole nother side of all these living organisms that we can't see, but do all these incredibly important exchanges and functions within the root zone and the medium. So we're talking about beneficial bacteria products, just as simple as a compost tea, baby. But even stuff like king crab, we love Plant Success. They're a huge supporter in the show. And one of the reasons I love king crab is because it's a microbial concentrate that you can add to any setup. Like a DWC, you want to be careful what you put in there. But it's so easy to add some of these products. And there's too many to list. I mean, again, like king crab, we're big supporters of. But again, Recharge is a great microbial product. Orca Photosynthesis Plus is fucking incredible.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I got to look over here. There's just too many to name, but you can tune
Mammoth
into
P.
Growcast and you'll hear a lot about microbiology. So that's what I would say. I wish I understood microbiology.
So follow on to that. What's your opinion on I'm sure you've probably heard it on Dude. Oh, maybe not, but maybe you've heard it on Dude Grows. They call it synganic.
Oh, fuck yeah, man. That's really how I grow with the beanstalk, technically, because with beanstalk agriculture, it's a one application, so it's super, super simple. But I don't just water with plain water. I alternate my microbial products. So it's basically just as simple as adding plain water. I'm not having to add some of the nutrition that I regularly add to my living soil products. My living soil plants will chew through all the potassium. I have to add soluble seaweed powder with regularity. They eat a ton of calcium, so I'm adding Demeter's Destiny. If they need phosphorus, I'll add something with a bit of phosphorus in there. I'm adding green aminos a lot of the time, even throughout flat. Like, I'm basically still on the bottle with my living soil. And the reason I went to beanstalk, which is synthetic, let's be clear, it has that EDTA, chelation agent, which we know isn't great for us. It's supposedly not that bad. We know it's not great for us. The reason I went back to that is because it's so fucking simple. But instead of just putting in plain water, I had a shot of Recharge. And then the next time I had a shot of king crab. And the next time I had a shot of photosynthesis. And honestly, it's the easiest way to grow. I'm about to smoke my first harvest from it. It looks great. It smells great. Again, I think I'm probably going to do like a 4-to-1. And to answer your question, that is synganic. That is synganic growing.
Yeah.
If you're applying living soil techniques to a system where you're also using bottled, synthetic, chelated nutrients, then you're doing a synganic setup. But I also think there's weird workarounds too, like FOOP is a bottled nutrient that is organic. So it depends on what you're talking about.
I ran a organic bottled line and had really less than desirable results. Maybe it was grower error, but the was such a poor turnout that I'm not even willing to give it a second shot to see if I can fix it. Like, I know I'm not that bad of a grower, you know what I mean? So I kind of practice a very similar approach, though. I don't do like the one-time fertilizers. I do like a feed microbes instead of like feed flush like a lot of people would typically do. Instead of flushing, I just throw my microbes in that third round.
So you do like a synganic?
Yeah, very similar.
That's awesome.
Yep. Yeah,
it's kind of the best of both worlds, honestly.
Yeah, and do you know what I think I kind of stopped using for a little while, which I think is really brings out some flavors that I've never experienced in other crops, and so I'm working it back in is bokashi. Like adding in some bokashi extract and watering that in every now and then. It's just crazy how much more potent that flavor comes out. And so
I love that, man. Again, that's that fungal life.
Yeah.
That's working that living soil. And that's I'm so glad you brought up bokashi, man. That's absolutely. I had such a limited experience with it, and it was so good, and I never bought more. Like, you just personally reminded me.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to order more.
I recommend getting a bucket, man. You can just use your bucket with these EM1 microbes that you get off Amazon, wherever. You probably could get them from a local store or something as well.
I've seen those.
And as it's building and composting, not only are you reusing your food scraps and literally everything. You could put meat in there, cheese in there, but there's a leachate that comes out the bottom, and you dilute it like 1 to 100 or something. It's either 1 to 100 or 1 to 1,000, and water that right in, dude. It is that's gonna be my secret of the week.
Yeah.
Damn, dude, I love that. Yeah, the bokashi. Yeah, great recommendation. And that's, the microbiology, but if you get enough of it going, you can see that shit start to bloom.
Yeah.
Don't panic when your soil surface turns into a fucking blanket of fungus.
Yeah, right.
It's a good sign.
So cool, dude.
We do unfortunately have to wrap it up. Jordan, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Is there anything else that you wanted to get out there that we didn't give you a chance to talk about today?
No, not at all, man. I mean, I'm always down to chat. All I do is yak. But come check us out. Growcast podcast on Spotify. It's free every single week. We're on all the podcast apps. Come check out the hundreds of hours of bonus content at patreon.com/Growcast, including Growcast TV live here every Wednesday. We do like game shows and crazy shit goes on behind the paywall. So check that out. We do classes in Rockford, Illinois at Next Level Indoor Garden Supply. If maybe you're hearing this and you want to get started growing, check out our classes in Rockford, Illinois. Follow us on Instagram. Get on the green list, growcastpodcast.com/list. That'll let you know if we're coming to a town near you. It's a lot of stuff. I think I did it.
Appreciate it. Thanks so much for joining us. I hope you'll do it again. That was a great show.
I will come back anytime. This is fantastic. You guys are awesome. This show is just a lot of fun. Super easy to talk to.
Awesome.
Credits to the hosts.
Thank you
you
so
very
much,
much.
Jordan. It was a pleasure. And honestly, we would love to have you come back on. It was a pleasure talking to you as well. And
Done.
it's nice talking to other people who feel comfortable talking, right? It takes that whole, oh crap, I'm on an interview behind a video sort of weird aspect away from it. And like, we're just, all right, let's shoot the
fun.
shit.
Sometimes cultivators are shy, but I'm definitely not shy. If anything, I could be more shy. So,
Hell yeah. Well, all right, Coalition. Thank you so much for joining us today. This has been with Jordan River of Growcast. Don't forget to check out the Patreon, www.patreon.com/Cannabis Cum Laude, or hit it in the show notes. Check out the Discord, and don't forget to elevate your state of mind.
Thanks to our friends here at Rockbox Recording and Production in Rochester, New York. They are a full professional podcast and video studio designed by a radio guy for podcasters. Audio, video, voiceovers, editing, whatever. Mouth off at Rockbox at rockbox.com.
You can follow Cannabis Cum Laude on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Cannabis. Type Cannabis Cum Laude into your search bar and you should be able to find us, but the links will also be posted in the episode notes as well. If you want to help support the show, head on over to Patreon, and that will ensure that we're able to keep the best quality sound and video coming to you on a regular basis. And if you liked what you heard today, please don't forget to rate and review the show.